Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Utility Sports, and we're so excited for today's video, a 2023 NFL mock draft. The draft is right around the corner, Austin. We're less than a month away now from one of the most important days of the year, and I think you look back to last year, teams like the Seattle Seahawks, New York Jets, and a few others set themselves up for a ton of success that we already saw kind of start to begin last year, but of course, for the rest of the careers of those players they drafted last year, the draft is so important. If you guys do enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more. And Austin, let's jump into it. First overall, Carolina kind of controls the destiny of this draft, and there's been a lot of rumors about CJ Stroud, Bryce Young. Obviously, we've seen some Anthony Richardson jersey swaps as well. There's a lot of discussion about this first overall pick after Carolina gave up the whole kit and caboodle to move up. Austin, where do you have the Carolina Panthers going here in this mock draft?
I think it's been pretty evident with some of the evidence that you're seeing right now with CJ Stroud being the guy. Now, I think there's a lot of hype behind Anthony Richardson. I do believe that is valid hype. However, I think CJ Stroud is their guy. He's done so well in the offseason in terms of preparing for the combine, the actual combine performance. There's so much to love about what he's done throughout the progression of the offseason. To me, he's the big winner out of this. A lot of people thought he very well could still be like the fourth quarterback taken. But in this mock draft, I really do believe he makes a strong case for number one.
You know, I remember a few months ago, Austin, you mocked CJ Stroud first overall. You got trolled in the comments section, and kind of goes to show how these mock drafts kind of evolve and change over time. You know, CJ Stroud, I think, as of right now, with the connections he's built in that front office, does look to be the first overall pick this April. Second overall, Houston's here, and their guys sitting out there, right, Austin? Bryce Young, perceived to be the guy that they would prefer in this draft process. There's even been rumors that they'd maybe even move up to number one with Carolina, although in this mock draft we are not looking at some of those trade possibilities. Austin, does Houston kind of hit a home run here getting Bryce Young second overall?
Yeah, I think they're getting exactly what they want with Bryce Young, because I think a lot of people realize that CJ Stroud is likely the Panthers guy, and you follow suit really with the Houston Texans getting their guy in Bryce Young. When you combine his athleticism, his accuracy, his poise, makes for a tremendous quarterback prospect. His frame is really the only thing holding him back from being the number one overall pick, in my opinion. He has all of those different traits outside of the actual physical ones, which is very tough for him. However, if you're able to get a guy like this who's shown so much poise throughout the course of his collegiate career, this is your number one guy. This is where the Texans feel super comfortable getting that franchise guy, moving on from Davis Mills. This is much needed in Houston and a breath of fresh air for D'Amico Ryans and the new staff.
This is a significant upgrade for them at the most important position in football, and it's very nice for Bryce Young knowing he's going to step into that job with Laramie Tunsil as his blindside protector on day one of his NFL career for years to come. Third overall, brand new head coach in Arizona, Jonathan Gannon, looking to probably build up this defense specifically with some of the pieces on the board. Obviously, Kyler Murray's going to have to rehab, come back from his ACL injury this past year. Austin, Arizona's kind of in a tricky spot right now where they're going through some, roster turnover that's very typical when you have some coaching changes. With where Arizona's at, Austin, first of all, who are they going with this pick? And then secondly, what do you think about the direction of their franchise as they currently sit?
I think they're kind of trying to wade in the water a little bit, trying to keep afloat. With Gannon coming in, there's a lot of unknowns in terms of what he's going to bring in terms of what the culture is. However, they could really start to right some of the wrongs that have happened over the last couple of years and draft Will Anderson, arguably the most talented player in the entire class. Will Anderson Jr. is super productive. He's an absolute freak of nature when you come and look at, what he's able to do on the football field. He's a total disruptor, game changer, whatever you want to quote that. Will Anderson is a terrific guy to overall build your defense with. Jalen Carter very well could have been in consideration, but I think with some of his off the field stuff that's going on right now, it's going to cause a slight tumble, but not too far.
We'll definitely talk about that a little bit more later. Will Anderson, after an incredible sophomore year, followed it up with a very strong junior season as well, has locked himself up, in my opinion, as a top 5 pick in this draft, and you see him here going top 3. You never know. Draft night has some crazy turn of events, but Will Anderson right now, I feel like 3 is really that safe spot for him where a lot of people see him going. Then fourth overall, now we turn to Indianapolis, Austin, and the last 2-3 years has been quarterback carousel there in Indianapolis for the Colts. And you and I have never been a big fan of that. The Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz turnover, it's been kind of disgusting, honestly, looking at it from an outside perspective. Quarterback, the most important position in football. Austin, do you see the Colts looking at that position strongly here and ultimately landing on one of either maybe Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, or maybe a third guy enters the mix here for you?
Yeah, there's only one other guy to me in consideration outside the quarterback position, and that would be Jalen Carter. I think they'd actually kind of think about that a little bit further, because adding a guy like Jalen Carter would be incredible to that defense already. But right now, I think it's critical for them to get this right. Now, you look at the quarterbacks that are currently on the board. There's two of the big dogs in the tier number one status. That's Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. These are the two favorites to me at this spot. I do believe with Anthony Richardson's combine and what he brings athletically, he is actually going to leapfrog Will Levis, which has been a popular pick of mine, at pick number 4. So some big changes here. Very quarterback heavy already in the top 5.
Think about stylistic changes from Indianapolis. You think back the last 25 years or so, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck. You have obviously the trio of Carson Wentz, then also Phillip Rivers and Matt Ryan. I can't say any of those guys were real combine warriors. Anthony Richardson, probably the most athletic guy to put on a Colts uniform at that quarterback position. Austin, really like that pick, especially with some of the dynamism he brings to an offense that we haven't really seen have any dynamism from the quarterback position other than just pure throwing ability. So Anthony Richardson going to be fun to watch there in that blue and white. Pick number 5, Seattle here with a golden opportunity now. They have the 5th overall pick via Denver, obviously from the Russell Wilson trade, which has been a huge W for that franchise so far. They're in Seattle, and now they're at a spot where a guy like Jalen Carter sitting here for them, and then they're at a crossroads where, Geno Smith's on a very team-friendly deal in terms of his future guaranteed money, the way that they can move off of that contract. Austin, I want to know, first of all, what do you think they actually do on draft night? Do they go quarterback for the future? Do they go win now and go with a guy like Jalen Carter? And what do you actually think that you would do in their shoes?
I think when you're in this kind of position right now, I firmly do believe that they're going to lean, are we going to be better this year? They're trying to compete this year, and you look at Pete Carroll's career, we don't know how many years he has left, and they're going to want to try to make one more strong push for the postseason, maybe in a 2-year window. And I think that revolves around Geno Smith, to be completely transparent with the audience here. I think he's shown enough last season to the point where you can trust him for a couple of years to come. Now, I think, to me, I would err on the side of a guy like Jalen Carter. I think that at this point, they're actually not really considering quarterback, but Tyree Wilson is actually going to be the selection here. Maybe a little bit of a surprise, but when you look at the film that he puts on, his lower body strength, super sturdy, elite against the run. Tyree Wilson is the perfect Seattle Seahawk. They need some more guys a part of that front 7 to really solidify that side of the ball. The secondary is really awesome in terms of what they've built so far and are going to continue to build on in this draft. But, getting better up front, specifically at the edge spot, Tyree Wilson has been a high riser throughout the course of the season, and he finally finds himself inside the top 5 in one of my mocks.
A high-level edge who goes 5th overall here to Seattle definitely makes some sense, specifically given the fact that they did improve the interior defensive line as well during the free agency period to a certain extent. Pick 6, talk about golden opportunities. Here's the Detroit Lions, who maybe have one of the best, brightest futures in the NFL. This offense last year was so potent, and now they have Jamison Williams for the foreseeable future as a mainstay in that offense, someone who last year you and I really liked a lot, especially the move that they made on draft night with the Minnesota Vikings to move up to 14 to select him. And now at 6, with this pick coming from the LA Rams, I don't think anyone before the year would have expected this pick to be this high. But obviously now, this kind of golden ticket that they have, who do they punch it in on here now, Austin?
I think when you look at the Detroit Lions, there's a lot of things that they consider at this spot. I know a lot of people like the idea of potentially going another wide receiver, but to me, I like the wide receiver room they have in place. I feel like people have forgotten about Jamison Williams and the fact that he was a first-round draft pick last year and just missed a lot of time due to injury. And the fact that they have Amon-Ra St. Brown as well. Another thing that people have been talking about is maybe they go tight end with this spot. I just don't see that being a likely outcome. at all, to be completely honest. I think they're going to be the team that ends up taking the risk on Jalen Carter. They feel like they have a good culture to really culminate what he can do. Jalen Carter had some struggles, had some big struggles, not only in the off the field stuff, but some of the on field drills. Didn't look exactly how scouts thought he was going to, but when you put on the film, it should be enough to override how some of those drills looked.
Of course, dealing with some off the field issues, and then obviously a poor pro day to say the least, has impacted his stock. Typically, people were looking at Carter as a top 2, top 3 pick in this year's draft. Now we see him fall to 6 in the latest rendition of your mock, Austin. Based on pure talent alone, which you referenced, I want to know, you got a couple weeks here to finalize your big board. Where do you currently have Jalen Carter sitting on that big board that you have?
Yeah, I mean, he's a near top 3 level player, potentially top 4. He's right in that realm. So when you look at him overall, if he's able to continue his ascension, I mean, he has a chance to potentially be the best player in the draft. Now, that's very, very lofty expectation for an interior defensive lineman, but he has that kind of impact on the game.
Could be a potential game wrecker for Detroit. Pick 7, the Las Vegas Raiders here now. Obviously, they got the man under center in Jimmy Garoppolo in free agency. Definitely makes some sense with the New England ties there between the head coach and obviously Jimmy G's, return to working with him. So Austin, I think quarterback likely off the table here unless you see something different. Where are you looking for Vegas at this spot?
I think with Las Vegas, it's about shoring up the offensive line, to be completely honest. When you look at what's currently available, there's a lot of guys that are worthy, but Peter Skoronski has been probably my favorite tackle to watch throughout the course of the actual, throughout the off-season programs. You watch the film with him. The thing that kind of holds him back is shorter arms at the tackle spot, which is a main concern. Now, I think it's a valid concern considering a lot of the guys at the collegiate level just have shorter arms, therefore he's able to get away with it. But some of these other, edges are going to really get to him. However, he has good footwork. He's going to be able to compensate for some of the physical issues that he's got going on.
Right. The question about the first guy to make contact typically is the winner. We'll see if Peter Skoronski and his actual talent at the tackle spot is able to overcome some of those physical deficiencies that you highlighted. Pick number 8, we have the Atlanta Falcons here now, Austin, who they're riding into the season with Desmond Ridder as QB1, or at least that's what we're hearing out of Atlanta's camp. Are you buying into that, Austin, on the former Cincinnati Bearcat, or are you thinking Atlanta might really look at that quarterback spot? I feel like there's a good collection of needs that this team has to add to, but Arthur Smith, a very good creative coach, maybe finds a way to work around some of those needs.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because this is not what was a thought a little while ago, but I think Will Levis actually goes here. Now, I have not seen that a lot from other people, but at the end of the day, I think Atlanta is actually going to be in on a quarterback. I don't think they actually believe in Desmond Ridder. He's a nice story. Is he fun? Yes. Is he a franchise quarterback? No. Does Will Levis have that potential? I believe so. Now, a lot of negative on the tape, a lot of negatives. Now, I cannot state that enough, how much negative that I saw, but at the end of the day, I think he has the ability to potentially be, right there in the conversation, the best quarterback in the class with his upside. But once again, we have to ask ourselves, what is the actual likelihood of that outcome? He's got a massive arm. He's a really good athlete. But overall, something's got to give. And I think this is a really risky pick, to be completely honest.
If the Falcons select Will Levis, we're going to have to get Gus Johnson on the call week 1. Big, strong arm QB at that quarterback 1 position. Pick number 9, we got the Chicago Bears here, obviously moving down to 9, Austin, and picking up DJ Moore and a few other assets as well in that move. Obviously, really shook up the draft. Even before the month of the NFL draft, some people were saying they moved on too early. Well, we'll see how it all plays out, but they're still in a pretty good position here. They added some nice pieces in that trade. Now, 9th overall, they have an opportunity to go out and get a variety of different players in this draft that can be day 1 impacts. Who do you like here for them?
I think when you look at the collective board, and what the Chicago Bears are not bind to one position, but I think something that's pretty obvious and what's been the trend of this offseason has been, how can Justin Fields get more help? And I think that once again comes along the lines of getting more consistent play out of their tackle, specifically in the pass game. Paris Johnson Jr. is arguably the best pass protector in the entire class, regardless of position. He's going to be the Chicago Bears pick, in my opinion. I just think what he brings from an actual, footwork standpoint, He's got longer arms than Skoronski, and I think, in actual technicality's sake, he has been better than Skoronski. But Paris Johnson, super impressive tackle, did a great job at Ohio State. He's going to be a seamless fit with this offensive line. And once again, they're making more and more investments towards the whole Justin Fields experiment and making that work.
A former Buckeye at tackle, former Buckeye at quarterback. We'll see how those things play out for Chicago moving forward. Big Ten, the Eagles, again, how crazy is it that a team in the Super Bowl this year has a top 10 pick? Austin, all last draft cycle, we talked about how well positioned Philadelphia was for the foreseeable future. I think this year was indication of that, but I don't think they're going away anytime soon. They're young. They've got a lot of talent. They've got draft picks still to add on to this team as well. They're in a prime position here, Austin. And after locking in their corners in James Bradbury and Darius Slay, and maybe losing a couple other pieces along the way, what do you think Philadelphia needs to address here to ultimately get back to where they were a year ago?
Now, if we think about Howie Roseman and how he's constructed his teams over the last couple of seasons, there's always a clear pathway in how he's done things. And to me, I think he's going to continue to invest in his trenches. That has been a staple in terms of what he's tried to do over the course of time. Kalijah Kancey here from Pittsburgh, really good athlete, super quick, short area quickness, long speed, but he's a guy that can actually get after the quarterback. And Philadelphia always is looking for pass rushing defensive tackles, not necessarily looking for big run stuffers. They want guys that can stretch out run plays and really make plays, trying to get out to the perimeter as well. Kancey absolutely does that. One of the best defensive line athletes in the entire class. He's a perfect fit for Philadelphia schematically and also just fitting on the history of what Howie Roseman's trying to do with his defenses.
Right, you think back to last year, grabbing Jordan Davis. Now Kancey, I think, is a perfect fit next to him on that interior defensive line. You think about last year as well, Philadelphia addressing the interior defensive line midseason with a couple signings that were really important in their run to the Super Bowl. Kalijah Kancey, a significant upgrade for them long-term, though, on that interior, especially with some of those athletic traits you highlighted. Pick 11, the Tennesse Titans here now, Austin, and Tennessee's in a tricky spot. Ryan Tannehill, Malik Willis. What do you really think about that quarterback room? Would they make a consideration here after the top 4 quarterbacks are off the board? What's your thoughts here for Tennessee? There's a lot of questions about this franchise right now.
Yeah, so I think this is kind of a shaky subject here when you look at the Tennessee Titans. I think the quarterback position is most certainly an issue, but knowing Mike Vrabel and what he's going to try to do, he's going to try to skid by and make it work. To me, I think they have to get more weapons on the perimeter. Now, there's a couple of different options. You have Jackson Smith-Njigba, you have Quentin Johnston. Now, Quentin Johnston didn't measure in as big as people thought. People thought he was going to be 6'4". He came in more or less at like 6'2.5". Not a sizable difference, but nevertheless a big difference in terms of his appeal. I know a lot of people are still a big fan of him. He's a really good route runner, just not as much of a high point catcher as you would think for his size. Nevertheless, I still actually think he is the number 1 wide receiver taken off the board, and I think he's going to complement Treylon Burks pretty well.
Yeah, definitely wide receiver is a need there in Tennessee. We saw the importance of the loss of a guy like A.J. Brown, who obviously we highlighted how good Philly was. He was a main part of that, but also Tennessee's big step back from 2 years ago to where they were this past season. I think you could highlight that wide receiver position and some of the inconsistencies they faced at that spot this past year. Big 12, Houston on the board again. Remember, they got their franchise guy in Bryce Young, and now this pick comes from Cleveland in what I think is one of the heights of the century with the Deshaun Watson trade, landing 3 first-round picks for them. This is their second opportunity to select with the Cleveland Browns selection. Austin, what do you like here at this spot for Houston? There's so many ways that they could go. They're in a spot right now where they really need to make some upgrades.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're in a spot that they have to get better. Once again, at the receiver position, we might see a little bit of a run here coming up. And to me, I think the guy that they're going to look at as truly game-breaking is going to be Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers, size-wise, not the most exciting, but in terms of what he brings on the field, his electricity. I mean, you look at the route running, you look at his ability to, take the ball to the house. Those are the kind of things you're looking for a young quarterback, a guy that could be super dynamic and, give you a lot of easy throws to, potentially get chunk yardage off of. Zay Flowers absolutely provides that. Jackson Smith-Njigba is a nice receiver, but he is not, to me, as game-breaking as a guy like Zay Flowers would be at the next level.
right? This past season, Zay Flowers amassed over 1,000 yards playing for Boston College. He also has 29 career touchdowns, so he's been productive, and he's somebody who I think Bryce Young is going to rely on early on, especially after moving off of Brandon Cooks this offseason if you're the Houston Texans. Pick 13, the New York Jets here now, Austin. Very possible that this team's on the brink of making a big trade for Aaron Rodgers. So let's operate under the notion that Aaron Rodgers is QB1 for the New York Jets. What does that really do for this franchise? And then where do they look to improve off of that? Right now, they've got a pretty deep wide receiver room, I think a lot of people would say. You and I have had discussions off camera about that maybe they still could use another, guy in there next to Garrett Wilson. What's your thoughts here for the Jets at this spot?
The New York Jets are in a really good position here, especially if they're able to keep this pick, which they likely will be able to. I think tackle is another need for them, and we've seen Joe Douglas in the past be very, very hyper aware of him needing offensive line. He's put a lot of capital into it so far. I think they're going to look another tackle here. Broderick Jones is the guy. He's exactly what they're looking for in terms of the size. I mean, Joe Douglas has mentioned multiple times in interviews about how important size is at that offensive line spot. To me, Broderick Jones is going to be a terrific fit for this team. You have AVT at guard. Overall, I mean, this offensive line is going to be good. Aaron Rodgers is going to have a ton of protection. And to me, that's going to be enough for them to, really actually start to contend.
I like that fit a lot for my New York Jets. I think that they need to continue to address that offensive line. That's been a big strong point for them, especially with Breece Hall coming back from injury this year. You hope to help him on the run game a little bit, and adding a strong, meaty offensive tackle is going to help go a long way in paving some running room as well as protecting Aaron Rodgers. 14, we're staying in that AFC East now with the New England Patriots, Austin. There's been a lot of rumors swirling about who the Patriots could maybe be involved in. We've heard some Lamar Jackson rumors, although I'm not going to really buy into that at this point. 14th for New England. Who do you like here? With these cornerbacks on the board, it almost feels too good to be true for Bill Belichick in New England.
And that's the scary thing. Now, it's not listed as a need, but it doesn't matter for Bill Belichick. Why? Because he is looking for that tall, lengthy corner. Christian Gonzalez is the pick. This is probably my favorite fit in terms of all of the players in the class going to a team. Christian Gonzalez going to play alongside of, for Bill Belichick, I should say, is going to be an awesome fit. Athletically, he's tremendous. Length, his ability to track the ball. All of this encompassing is set for a terrific career for Christian Gonzalez, for him to get a big payday later on in his career, probably for another team, and then for him to wind back up in New England. That's how it always seems to go with these corners.
Bill Belichick seems like the boundary corner whisperer. You think about some of the guys he's helped take big steps forward in their careers. Stephon Gilmore goes from Pro Bowler to All-Pro Defensive Player of the Year type player. Then you also think about some of the guys, third, fourth, fifth, sixth round picks end up becoming absolute studs in New England at that cornerback spot. Imagine a guy going top 15 to them in that spot. He's going to end up being maybe the best player in the class, right? You never really know with Bill Belichick there in New England. Pick 15, the Green Bay Packers, obviously at the center of a lot of drama in the NFL right now. After Aaron Rodgers came out of his basement, after his little retreat, there's been a lot of rumors and discussion about him being traded. Austin, Jordan Love, he's the guy of the future, we're presuming at this point. Where does Green Bay look to go here to help complement him into winning some games early?
Yeah, so it's tough. I kind of walk the line of the idea that maybe they look at wide receiver, but I actually think they're going to address the tight end spot, which is kind of surprising here. I have Michael Mayer going to the Green Bay Packers with Robert Tonyan gone. I think Michael Mayer steps in and is super productive as a first-year rookie tight end playing alongside of Jordan Love. This could be an awesome fit for them. I think getting a guy as talented as Michael Mayer at 15 is tremendous. He's could be a top 10 level guy. Some people don't seem to agree with that, but when you look at what he brings from an athleticism standpoint, after the catch, he can be super dangerous. He's been, labeled as Baby Gronk, as a lot of people like to deem that. So overall, I think the Green Bay Packers could be looking at receiver. Maybe that's a Jackson Smith and Jigba landing spot. Now with their loss of Alan Lazard, they're going to have to get more receivers in that room. But I think Michael Mayer is an awesome fit for the Packers.
I swear every year there's someone deemed a baby Gronk. It's just the most commonly said thing across NFL drafts. And Austin, I want to know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how big of a middle finger would it be to Aaron Rodgers for Brian Gutekunst to draft a pass catcher in round 1 this year?
That would be awesome. I think that this is going to be the year that it finally happens.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's just the storylines, you can't make them up, honestly, with the NFL. Pick 16, Washington on the board here. Sam Howell, QB1 as of right now. And this team, who I think still has a good variety of needs and what they could look to add. Is there a player out here that you really love for them that you think this guy's a really dynamic piece, whether it's on offense or defense, that can help this team win some games?
Absolutely. And it's a guy I've been talking about for a long time, Devin Witherspoon from Illinois. I think with Washington and getting a guy like Witherspoon on pick 16, the value's tremendous, in my opinion. You have already a tremendous defensive line that's going to continue to eat. This could be a scary defense if they draft Witherspoon. Yes, there's going to be some people saying, oh, what about this offense? You got to help fix this offense. Like, I get some of that. But at the end of the day, when you're a middling team like the Commanders are, you have to take some big swings at some super talented prospects, regardless of position, regardless of need. You need to draft stars, and I believe Devin Witherspoon has that ability.
And cornerback's been a position they've targeted in the past. You think back to William Jackson in free agency. Obviously, that did not pan out super well for them. This is maybe their opportunity to get it right, come back and add a premier cornerback. And I mean, in the middle of the first round, it seems like very good value for Witherspoon's actual potential and current capabilities as well. 17, we got the Steelers here now, Austin, a team that there's obviously a lot of question marks with them as well. Obviously, you know, Kenny Pickett perceived as the QB of the future there for Pittsburgh. What do you like for this team? Obviously, offensive line, we've been preaching it for years now for the Steelers. Do they need to grab offensive line at this pick?
I think it's a must. I really do believe that. Now, there's going to be some people saying, hey, you know, with some of the subtractions in the offseason, you have to potentially look at the linebacker spot. That has been stated a ton. Now, at the end of the day, we had talked about last year, if they just would have went with a tackle like we had said, I don't think it would have been nearly as a disaster. Najee Harris was super inefficient this year. And there's a big reason why, is that offensive line was awful. So we got to go ahead and start from ground zero on that one. So I'm going to go and take a look at what we currently have. Dwan Jones and Anton Harrison. I give the edge to Harrison. I think he's a better tackle prospect. You know, so far from what I've seen, Pittsburgh Steelers have to address this offensive line, and that can't be the last offensive lineman they take in this class. I think, you know, when they look a little bit later on in the draft, you have to get another guard and maybe even another tackle. Tackles are tough to come by, and this offensive line always seemingly is super hurt. So I don't think it's a bad idea.
Steelers fans, is not the sexy pick, but it's a good pick. Pick 18, the Lions here now with this pick, Austin. Who are you looking to add into Jalen Carter into this core?
I think when you look at the Detroit Lions, to me, you have to look at the cornerback position. Now, once again, Joey Porter Jr. is still available. Super physical. He's got the frame. He's got the length. He's got the ability to jam a receiver at the line. There's a lot of different things that he possesses at the cornerback spot that's going to be super attractive for, you know, this defense, and how is Aaron Glenn going to use them. To me, Joey Porter Jr. makes a ton of sense here at pick 18. It's good value. It's going to continue to progress this defense. The issue was not on the offensive side of the football. It was all on the back half of that defense. There was a lot of issues at the corner spot, but they couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop the pass. It didn't matter. Detroit needs a corner, and I'm scared of Detroit now. I really do believe that they're poised to win the North next year.
Jalen Carter, Joey Porter, those are two great additions to help that defense surge into 2023. Pick 19, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now. Obviously, Baker Mayfield's era is underway in Tampa, Austin. Does a guy like Jackson Smith-Njigba maybe join him there in Tampa?
Yeah, it's a great prompting question. I just think with the current wide receiver room, I actually think they're going to leave it alone. But Dalton Kincaid is going to be my pick out of Utah. His ability to run routes is super, super impressive. Phenomenal hands, good catch radius. This is one of the most complete tight end prospects you're going to see, especially in this class. He is a difference maker at that spot. Tampa Bay's been missing that for quite some time. I mean, ever since the departure of Gronk, who was, you know, let's be completely honest, a shell of himself. They have not had this position filled up like this in a long time. to me, Dalton Kincaid very well could be a Pro Bowler in his first year with Baker Mayfield.
In the NFC South, it's going to be a very interesting division. We'll see how everything plays out there, but Dalton Kincaid obviously gives Baker a pretty reliable target. Pick 20, we're back to Seattle now, and there's still some great options out here for this team. You think about some of the edge prospects, some defensive prospects still out here, and some offensive ones. Austin, what do you like for Seattle as they push to hopefully make the playoffs this next season?
Yeah, so now this is going to be one of those picks that's actually surprising. I have Jackson Smith-Njigba going. Now, some people are going to say, whoa, hold on. This wide receiving core is nice. But think about the idea of adding a guy as talented in the slot as Jackson Smith-Njigba. Opens up a ton underneath, super reliable hands. And let's not forget, this is a guy that was thought to be potentially, now I say once again, potentially a top 5 pick before the year had started. Falls to 20 because, he sat out so much of the season. Smith-Njigba at this point is tremendous value. He's a terrific receiver, super quick, but the long speed is something that's more of a concern. It doesn't matter because this offense has got it covered.
As a sophomore playing out of the slot for Ohio State next to Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, he put up 95 catches, 1,600 plus yards, and 9 touchdowns. That's the type of production you could be adding into your slot position there next to DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. You could look at a trio of receivers worthy of 1,000 plus receiving yards this next season, really giving Geno Smith a chance to continue to be the guy. Then obviously Miami's pick here is forfeited, so we go into pick 21. The LA Chargers here now at this spot, Austin, a team that consistently wins the offseason, but not in the regular season as much. Who do you like them going with here?
Yeah, seemingly we always crown the Chargers as Super Bowl champions before the year starts. Now, I think, once again, you have to go receiver to me. Jordan Addison gets to stay here in California. The USC product was very productive alongside of Caleb Williams. And you look at what he's going to be adding to this Chargers receiving room is super reliable hands and a guy that always seemingly is open. Now, with Jordan Addison, this is going to be a player, hopefully, that's able to stay on the field. Now, this has been a common theme for the Chargers is, blaming every single season on injuries, right? Every single year, we're always talking about, the Chargers, they would have gone deep in the playoffs if they didn't have injuries. Well, now Jordan Addison is going to provide a buffer because Keenan Allen is always hurt. Mike Williams is always hurt. So Jordan Addison hopefully is able to provide a little bit of stability in terms of, just being on the field.
Obviously a great collegiate wide receiver, and he's going to transition very well to the NFL, especially playing with Justin Herbert and that collection of wide receiver play there in LA. Pick 22, the Baltimore Ravens here now, Austin. I want to get your quick take on Lamar Jackson and also give us your thoughts on this pick. Does Lamar's current situation with a trade request play into that?
Yeah, I think that there's going to be some talks about that. However, I just think he's going to stay in Baltimore, to be completely honest. I think there's too much that has to go on for him to get traded. They'll end up working to a resolution. This seemingly always happens at a weird point in the season, but they'll be okay. But to complement, let's just assume that he does end up staying there. I think they do need another wide receiver. And we've talked about this so much, but at the end of the day, I think they're missing another slot guy. Josh Downs is my player here. I think when you look at Josh Downs, he's going to be the perfect complement to Rashad Bateman. Bateman being on the outside, Josh as the slot receiver. Josh Downs is super quick, and you look at his straight line speed, his short area quickness. He possesses everything speed wise, and he's had reliable hands as well, so that's not an issue. Josh Downs is the perfect fit into the offense. And I think, honestly, they could be super dangerous on that side of the ball.
Keep investing into your offense, especially when you have Lamar Jackson under center. Pick 23, Minnesota here, a team that is really undergoing a lot of changes, Austin. This is an important draft for Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and just this Vikings organization in general. Who do they look to draft at 23 that's going to be a mainstay for them for hopefully the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think the cornerback position is still a huge need for them. A couple of guys I like. Cam Smith is one that continues to fall down boards, which is a little bit puzzling to me. His film is better than a lot of the corners you're going to see in this class. A phenomenal man-to-man guy. I think that's going to be very key in Brian Flores' defense, which is Superman heavy, obviously coming from the New England roots. We've seen it time and time again. Puts a lot of pressure on his corners. And I think that's going to be the case with Cam Smith. And look at Byron Murphy, who was terrific in man coverage. So this scheme is being set up and put into place. So let's go ahead and pair it with a guy that works scheme wise. Cam Smith out of South Carolina is one of the more underrated players, in my opinion, in this draft. I love him here at 23.
Pick 24. We've got a team that I knew was going to be a playoff team this year. That's a callback to our pick'em and predictions throughout the season. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, they ended the season hot. I think they start next year even hotter. They're one of my teams that I look at going very deep into the postseason next year, and they're going to add some more talent onto this team right now. Who do you like for them? Is offensive line a concern, or are you looking more defensive side of the ball for this team?
Yeah, I mean, with losing Juwan Taylor to Kansas City, that was a big negative. However, the nice thing is they've been prepared for that. That's why they had drafted Walker Little. Walker Little is going to slide in nicely to that right tackle spot, potentially left tackle. They're still trying to figure it out, but this is one of the tougher picks in my opinion, considering what's currently on the board. There's a lot of terrific players here that I could see them going with. I would not discount the idea of a guy like Myles Murphy. Myles Murphy was thought to be a lock for a top 10 selection, continues to slide down boards, didn't have the production that people thought he was going to have this year, but Myles Murphy, in my opinion, is still worth, especially pick number 24. So back-to-back years, you see them go edge. Trent Baalke's done it before. He invests on that side of the football, more specifically at that edge spot.
Myles Murphy staying in the southeast part of the United States, obviously now down in Jacksonville. 25th overall, the New York Giants, one of the surprise teams from last year. Brian Daboll did such a great job with that team. Danny Dimes gets paid. Saquon Barkley, obviously in a situation where he's on the tag as of right now. Austin, for the Giants, who are you looking at for this team? I think there's a wide variety of ways that they could look at this spot to improve their team going forward.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys that stand out. Brian Branch being one of them, Lucas Van Ness. There's some guys that are still hanging around that very well should be taking at this point. To me, Brian Branch is going to be my selection when you look at the actual value. He is a tremendous fit into this back half of that secondary. The Giants are going to continue to progress on that side of the ball. I think receiver is something that you have to consider, but at this point in the draft, it gets really tough as it continues to thin out at that spot. As you can see, Nathaniel Dell, Michael Wilson, A.T. Perry, they might have to rely on some of their later round scouting in order to address that spot.
We're on the clock making a selection in Austin. I am begging to hear two words right now, and those two words are Bijan Robinson. I want to hear that name called. If I'm a Cowboys fan, that's who I'd be begging for. In state, do they go with an arguable top 5, top 10 talent in this year's draft after moving off of Zeke? What's your thoughts on the Cowboys right now? Who are they looking at in this spot?
Glad you said it, because that's where I'm going with it. Bijan Robinson is the selection here. It's mind-boggling to me that they have him ranked as the 26th prospect. That's just wrong, in my opinion. Bijan Robinson going to the Dallas Cowboys. Him and Tony Pollard are going to make for an insane running back duo. Dallas is going to be a top 5 rushing team in the league if this is the selection. Great pick by them. A lot of times they try to go best player available, and that's what they're able to do here at 26.
In terms of his actual talent, last season playing for Texas, Bijan Robinson forced 112 missed tackles. That's nearly 10 missed tackles a game. That's how dynamic and dominant this guy was. And like you said, Austin, it's incredible how I think lazy and casual the narrative's been around a running back. I understand that running backs maybe not at the heart and center of team building, but a lot of these teams that are maybe 1-2 pieces away from, being really, really dangerous come playoff time, why would you not want to add a guy that nobody can tackle? It's incredible. He's going to get 250 touches probably as a rookie, and nobody can bring him to the ground. That's how valuable of a running back he could be at the next level in the NFL. I'm very excited to watch him play, if you can't tell by my animation about him falling to 26. 27, Buffalo here now, probably with their hearts ripped out that Bijan Robinson's no longer available. But there's still some really good options out here for a team that maybe would look to add a couple defensive backs in this draft, maybe a couple other positions as well. What are you looking at here for Buffalo at 27?
Yeah, I was a little tempted about Lucas Van Ness still being here. You could look, potentially at the tackle spot, but to me, I think it does come down to the cornerback position. I like Emmanuel Forbes, I really do. His ball tracking's terrific. Emmanuel Forbes has been a guy I've actually had my eye on for the last 2 seasons. He goes to Buffalo. He's going to fit that scheme, under Leslie Frazier very well. And I think when you look at the Buffalo Bills, they have to get better, especially in that secondary, considering who they have to go up against. They, obviously had a home run selection with Kyrie Elam last year. I mean, I really, really do believe that, him and Emmanuel Forbes, plus, Tre'Davious White are going to be an insane cornerback trio.
One of those teams that they're going to have to continue to try and run through in the AFC is the Cincinnati Bengals, who are now on the clock 28th overall. And Austin LVN's continuing to slide down the board a little bit. I'm sure there's some stopping point coming for him along the road here. Is it Cincinnati or, obviously offensive line? They've addressed that a little bit this offseason. Could there be some other targets for them as well? Of course, they also have a current tackle who's on the trade block with the way things have played out for them this offseason.
Pretty tough with the Bengals to nail down exactly what they're going to do, but I do think that Van Ness is on their radar, but I actually don't think they're going to go with the D lineman, but not him, Brian Brzee. More of an issue on the interior of their defensive line. Brian Brzee is one of the hardest working players in this entire draft. He's got a motor that goes on for days. He's not a super dynamic athlete, therefore causing this fall, but Brzee, even before the start of the season, was thought to be a lock to be a top 10 selection. Once again, production didn't match. You would have needed him to be pretty productive in order for him to, get up to that height, just because of the overall athleticism deficiency that he has. But I think Brzee is going to be a nice fit going from the Clemson Tigers over to the Cincinnati Bengals.
I like that there for Cincinnati, adding a good impact player that can definitely help that defensive trench play. Pick 29, we're looking at a team here in New Orleans that obviously they surrendered their own first-round pick in a trade that we talked about earlier with Philadelphia when they moved up into last year's draft. And now at 29, they're on the board here through a series of trades that has landed this pick in New Orleans. Austin, what do you think about this spot for them? What do they need to add? Obviously, they've made some big moves this offseason, Derek Carr being kind of at the forefront of them.
Probably the best value you're going to see in the draft now is Lucas Van Ness. With the subtraction of Marcus Davenport, I think it's super critical that they're able to, continue to address the edge spot. They've had some really good defenses over the years, and I think that, continuing that would be very, very vital to their success moving forward. Lucas Van Ness, once again, another great motor guy. From a technical standpoint, he absolutely blows you away. He can win with power, win with finesse. There's a lot of different ways that he can beat you. And the fact that he's here at 29, the Saints would be, obviously running this up to the podium because this is an A-plus level pick.
Yeah, LVN, fantastic value pick for them. Like you said, Austin, I know a lot of people are very high on his game. I know you are as well. But we've seen this happen before where prospects do slide unanticipated, and it's possible that a guy, some teams don't even consider certain players because they think, oh, well, he's not going to be there at our range. Well, and then heck, he's fallen, and they're like, well, we don't have the medicals on him, or we don't have this information, we didn't bring him in for a visit. Those kind of details end up going a long way in terms of whether a guy gets drafted somewhere or not as well. 30th, Philadelphia on the clock with their second first-round pick. I think it's possible we see them move one of these picks as well. Obviously, no trades here in this video. Austin, 30th, who are you looking at for them? Where do they go? Is it cornerback for long-term building behind a guy like Bradbury and Slay? Or are they going more win-now approach with this selection?
Yeah, so I think with Philadelphia, they're not scared to do anything, and that's been clearly obvious. You love what Howie Roseman's been able to do over the tenure with Philadelphia. Deonte Banks is still available, Nolan Smith. Those are my two highlighted guys. Now, despite them taking an interior defensive lineman, I don't rule out the fact that they could add more along that front. I just think long-term Deonte Banks is going to be their guy. You have to get some more corners in that room. Who knows what the true future is of that cornerback room? Obviously a little bit older. I think it'd be nice to pump in some youth and really get some guys. Deonte Banks doesn't have to play a ton in the first year. It's tough to play corner in your rookie year. There's very few that do it super effectively. So I think Deonte Banks could be a nice depth corner, also provide, for the future, a guy that could be very stable on the back end.
I like that for them a lot. And then we get into Kansas City, the team that ultimately went on to win the Super Bowl. I know last offseason, Austin, you and I continued to sing their praises, even post Tyreek Hill trade. We should go back and pull up clips of everyone hating on the Chiefs saying, oh, well, tough AFC West, they're going to fall out. Yeah, okay. This team consistently wins. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. When it's all said and done, Travis Kelce, one of the best tight ends to ever play. Andy Reid, one of the best coaches to ever coach. This team is so good, and they have a chance here to end the first round, adding in a little bit more talent onto their roster. Who do you like for them here?
I think Kansas City has a lot of different ways that they can look. I don't think there is like a clear spot where it's like, oh, they have to do this. Now, there's a lot of players I like at the edge spot that I would consider for them. Will McDonald, Nolan Smith are some guys that, to me really stick out. BJ Ojolari, I've watched a lot of him. He's impressed me, and I think he can do some great things. But, to me, Nolan Smith is actually going to be the selection here. I like Nolan Smith, coming out. I think when you look at his overall athleticism, this guy can really ball. Now, I know with the Karlaftis, selection last year, it might not seem as likely, but I think Kansas City is going to continue to add to that front.
I think a very strong first-round mock draft. I do want to highlight the quarterbacks one more time. 4 of them go in the top 8. So half of the first 8 selections are quarterbacks. CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis. Austin, I know right now is not your final big board. It's not the end of the draft season completely yet. But as of right now, let's say you're in the shoes of Carolina. Not who do you think they're going to take? Who would you actually take yourself?
Yeah, it's pretty tough because if you want a polished product right now, it would be CJ Stroud. But if you're looking at the long-term upside potentially, I think Anthony Richardson provides that. When you look at every quarterback that's super successful right now, I mean, you look at, with Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, those guys struggled tremendously in college. Now, I think Anthony Richardson he's even further behind than those guys, but his upside is incredible.
Yeah, the athletic traits, the physicals, off the charts. He'd be a lot of fun to watch in Carolina. Whatever team gets him, I think is going to have a very fun player to watch on Sundays. But CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, those are the 2 headliners here starting off this mock draft. Hopefully you guys really did enjoy. Austin, it was a lot of fun recording this with you. I think, the hard work you put in definitely shows in your preparation here. So make sure you guys leave a like for him, all of his hard work that goes into these videos, the prep work, obviously actually scouting and watching these prospects endlessly. He does a lot of good hard work. So make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more, turn on the notification bell, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.